What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you my first impressions of Jagged Alliance 3, an upcoming tactical strategy game that will be releasing just a few hours later than this video, which means, of course, that I did receive a review copy for this, but I only received it on Wednesday of this week, July 12th, which wasn't enough time to properly review the game, obviously, so the review is going to be out a little bit later. That said, Jagged Alliance 3 is an interesting title because if you are unfamiliar with Jagged Alliance 1 or 2, the last one released all the way back in 1999 and was something of a cult classic. It actually did pretty well, but 1999 was a pretty great year for strategy games, as that also saw the release of Age of Empires 2, as well as the Homeworld series, which kind of overshadowed Jagged Alliance 2 a little bit. But thanks to a pretty dedicated modding community, Jagged Alliance 2 hung around for quite some time. That said, though, you don't need to have played the first two to jump into this one. It is not really a direct sequel or anything. However, it is my understanding there will be some returning characters that you might recognize from the earlier games as well. Beyond that stuff, let's actually talk about Jagged Alliance 3 specifically. We are going to be hiring and managing a company of mercenaries. Very recently, this country's president was kidnapped, and the people who did the kidnapping, a paramilitary organization known as Legion, has since more or less taken over the country. So our primary goal throughout most of the game here is to rescue said president. But in order to do this, we're going to be having to fight quite a few battles to duke it out for regional control of various cities, as well as diamond mines, which are going to bring an influx of cash to us, which is what will allow us to hire and maintain our mercenary company. So as you might imagine, this game puts a huge emphasis on mercenaries, and this is probably, I would say, the best time to mention that the game itself is meant to be a sort of throwback to 80s action movies, so a lot of it is very over-the-top action and characters with that era in mind. But when it comes to the mercenaries specifically, that's where it gets, I would say, pretty interesting, because the mercenaries are set in stone, so to speak. They each have their own personalities, they're divided up into tiers based off of their starting stats, and they all have various interactions and things they like and things they don't. For instance, some of them won't work with you if you're already working with a mercenary they don't like working with. In some cases, they might just charge you more for this, but either way, you're going to have to pay these people, which requires money. Money you will get from either selling various things you find out in the world or controlling the mines. Beyond just that, though, each of these mercenaries will have their own stats, things they're good at, their own type of class, if you will, which is going to be important when you need to do things like repair your gear, which does have durability associated with it. There are also rules around healing your mercenaries. You need a doctor to heal certain wounds that will otherwise eat into your maximum health. And all this while you need to do things like, again, capture those cities and then train a militia to defend them when your mercenaries aren't around. And doing this will give us more and more control of the overland map. But as you can probably see here, the overland map is divided up into a grid. Each grid piece is known as a sector, and each sector has its own tactical map, a layer you can dive into and actually move your mercenaries around on. This is where it gets pretty cool, because each of these sectors potentially has secrets and side quests to find. There is stuff to do beyond just fighting enemies. Many of these side quests have had multiple outcomes so far, and there seems to be a small amount of choice and consequence, and exactly how far-reaching and what those consequences entail I have yet to see, but there are choices that are marked with the "this action will have consequence" type of foreshadowing that has piqued my interest a bit. But that's to say nothing of the actual combat itself. Combat in this game is a turn-based tactical system that specifically uses action points. A lot of this is determined by an individual mercenary's stats, down to how many action points they have, what their chance to hit looks like, that kind of thing. But essentially everything you do in combat costs a certain amount of action points, and you use them accordingly. However, you do have a lot of options. Each individual mercenary will have a bunch of perks associated with them, as well as a special skill available to that one mercenary. You'll also have to outfit them with various weapons, which are good at various things. There are melee weapons, the usual assortment of guns, and when you go to attack an enemy, you can focus on certain body parts or spend extra action points to aim a little more closely to increase your chance to hit. Though I will say, unfortunately, it never gives you a proper percentage chance to hit, only these pluses or minuses that you can see it's taking into the calculation with, which means for the most part you just want more pluses than minuses since you never know exactly what it's going to do. But that's to say nothing of the other interesting options like all the various explosives you can find or make and then use in combat, which includes things like remotely detonated explosives, proximity mines, shape charges, regular grenades, flashbangs, all that usual stuff. And while you can engage with all of that and have a lot of fun, this is actually a game you can play with a solo mercenary as well. Going solo is an option, stealth is an option. There are silenced weapons. You can take out enemies silently and then approach it however you like after that. And I have to say, combined with the exploration and the side quests, the very robust approach to combat is, again, just more than I was expecting. So to sum this video up and not go on forever for a simple first impressions video, Jagged Alliance 3 is quite a bit bigger than I anticipated. There's tons of systems, tons of options, tons of approaches, and I'm really looking forward to diving into the rest of it, because the closest game I can think of that kind of also made me feel this way was Expeditions Rome, which, while certainly a pretty different game, much in the same way, however, really blew my expectations out of the water, and what little bit I've played of Jagged Alliance 3 so far, which has been about 10 hours, has vastly exceeded what I was expecting it to be. Beyond that, though, I will have to see how everything else pans out to really make an assessment, which is what I will save for the official review. In the meantime, though, I hope you enjoyed the impressions and this video. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.